Hello everyone, Tina here. I hope you're having a lovely day. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I'm sharing 3 cards with the Simon Says Stamp January card kit. It's called Snowflake Builder. It's for January 2020 and we're going to make 3 cards with this today. This is a quick look at what came in this month's kit and we're going to create some projects. You get 4 sheets of cardstock. You get sea glass, smoke, slate, and 120-pound white. You also get 2 little snow globes that are glass and wood based. I get to try out mica flakes. I've heard of them but never actually got to use them. These are really neat and they look so true to glass. What they are thin plastic shavings that look like glass or frozen fractals. I mean, they're super neat and they kind of make a little bit of a noise. So they're not light and fluffy. They actually have a little bit of weight to them. So these would be great for a shaker, but also to add to your snowflakes as little frozen fractals. So Distress Mica Flakes. You also get a jar of Distressed Collage Medium. This is like a glue, and so that's great for gluing your snowflakes to your cards and mica flakes. So that's a nice little bottle to have. You get a snowflake. This is a Simon Says Stamp wafer thin die. This is what it looks like. So pretty. It's called the MANDALA, mini snowflake mandala. You also get 4 envelopes in the same colors of cardstock. 2 of them have metallic coating on them. The other 2 are just basic. You also get a 6x6 sheet of silver glitter cardstock, and then 5 sheets of pattern paper that are double-sided. These pattern papers are from Kaiser Craft and they go perfectly with the theme for this month's kit. Now what I didn't share with you is also included in the kit is a jar of alcohol ink. I think there's different, it didn't state on your cover sheet what color of alcohol ink you got, so you might get a different one, but I have Stonewash. And for me, at first I wasn't going to use it because the Stonewash kind of didn't go with the color palette, but I ended up using it just because in case you got a different color, the card that I made would work just as well. But this is the Snow Builder stamp set. Super neat. There's layers that you can create snowflakes with. Some have 2, some have 3, but large, small, all different sizes. And then there's a banner with tons of sentiments that are curved that will fit in there. So we're going to jump in. That was the card kit. I'm going to start off by scoring my 3 card bases. This one I'm using the 120-pound Simon Says Stamp white cardstock. This one's the sea glass. I just trimmed mine straight down the middle and then score at 5.5 inches and fold it to create a top folding card base. We're going to use the slate for our 3rd card base. I love the color palette of this kit. I love grays and blues. I think it's kind of reminds me, I think I've mentioned this before, kind of a spa theme, but I really like those colors. Okay, I have my scoreboard here, and what we're going to start off by doing is scoring a line on a panel that's 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. This is the Simon's white cardstock that came in the kit. I scored at the 1 3/4 inch mark. Next, I'm going to take the 2 points. Any points that you want will work, but I'm taking the top and the bottom as long as the top and bottom point of your snowflake will hit your score mark. I die cut that out, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the snowflake again, but this time I'm going to line it up on the bottom of my panel. After this is ran through my die cut machine, we have my friend came to visit. She has a little basket on the desk, and if another cat takes the basket, she gets a little upset. Sometimes she'll just park it right on my desk. But I ran the bottom one through. It is a very intricate die, and you might have to wiggle it to get it away from the edges, or use a shim plate too. That would work just as well. So I have a top and bottom. Now I'm going to place it in the middle. She's pacing because she don't know what to do because somebody else is in her basket. But I die cut that out. So now they're evenly spaced and we have 3 snowflake cutouts. I'm going to go ahead and use my craft pick and just pick out all the pieces of my snowflakes so they're ready to go. Now it looks kind of funny. In fact, the bottom piece separated. It broke away, but that's okay because we're going to now trim at our score line. Well, what's left of our score line. So our paper is now trimmed in half. We're just going to use the wider half. This other half we'll stamp our sentiment on. But I love the wood grain pattern paper. I'm going to go ahead and trim that down so it's card front size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. We'll go ahead and adhere this panel directly to our slate card base. Once that's adhered, this is basically what our card's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and replace our snowflakes, but I'm going to offset it just a little bit from the white cardstock so it's just peeking out. Okay, we're going to use the sentiments in the stamp set. There's one that says hello friend in the same font. There's one that says you're amazing. I'm going to stamp those with VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and then I'm just going to use my sentiment dies here to cut those out. That way I know they're perfectly squared. We'll just find one that'll match our sentiments here and run our sentiment through our die cut machine. Now after we have this ran through our die cut machine, I'm going to use my scissors and trim off the top and bottom of that larger piece. They were barely connected to our panel, and I didn't think we needed those. I don't think it would make that big of a difference. So you could fussy and try and put small pieces of foam adhesive to them, but I just trimmed them off. We adhered that to the left of our card base. After we have that adhered, I'm going to go ahead and I also put foam adhesive behind my sentiment strips already. We are going to add small foam squares to the center of the back side of each snowflake. This way they're popped up and we can go ahead and insert them on our card base. And remember, I'm offsetting it just a little bit because I wanted the definition between the white panel and my snowflakes to stand out. We're going to go ahead and add our sentiment, kind of placing it a little bit wonky. And then for finishing touches, I'm going to go in with some Nuvo crystal gems. I believe a smaller jar of this came in a previous card kit. So these were so pretty and they worked perfect for snowflakes. I think it was elegant and subtle. But I just added them to all 3 snowflakes. And then that finishes off my first project. Here's a close-up. Now, before we start card number 2, I wanted to share with you what I did with my alcohol inks. Remember, I think we might all get different colors. This one is a darker blue, and again, it doesn't really go with my color palette, but any kind of alcohol ink you have will work for this technique, if you can call it a technique. The thing is, I don't have any Yupo paper, and so I thought, let's see if we could put this on acetate. Since acetate is a smooth surface, I thought, well, let's give it a go, and it worked out really neat. I think if you were to mix a couple colors, it'd turn out even prettier. But I added some splashes to a piece of acetate. The acetate that I used is from Fun Stamper's Journey. I'll link them down below. But I think it's going to look really neat on my background panel. But I wanted to make sure it was very dry before I continued on with that. So we're going to jump into card number 2 while that dries. For card number 2, I love these 3 colors of cardstock, and I love. I thought it'd make a real pretty background for my second card. So what we're going to do is trim down. Our slate is going to be our smallest strip, and that's going to be a 1 1/4 inch strip. And then next we're going to cut down our smoke colored cardstock. That's going to be 1 3/4 inch strip. And then our last piece is going to be with the sea glass, and that measures 2 1/2 inches. So we have 3 different sizes. Now when you layer all of these together, it should fit your card front perfectly. Now I'm using my sea glass card base, and you're probably thinking, well, I didn't need that top piece since my card base is the same color. But I'm going to adhere all of these to the front, and I wanted to make sure I had a nice smooth even surface because we're going to do some heat embossing, and I was afraid if I didn't add this piece that it wouldn't emboss as nice as I wanted it to. This way everything's nice and flush. Okay, I'm going to bring in my MISTI, and we are going to do some snowflake layering. I'm going to tack down my card base directly inside my MISTI, just using my tape runner, and then I'm taking the largest snowflake in the stamp set. It's so pretty. And I'm making sure when I stamp it that I'm stamping on all 3 of my colors. So barely on the sea glass and barely on the smoke, but I just think it looks really neat. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add my white embossing powder over my snowflake. I stamped it with my VersaFine ink, and I did heavily treat my card front with my anti-static powder tool. I wanted to make sure that there was no extra little flakes hanging around. I went ahead and melted my white embossing powder, and I think that looks gorgeous. I'm going to place this back in, and this has a second layer to it. So I'll take my second layer and line it up right in the center there. I'll pick that up with the lid of my MISTI, and we're going to do the same thing with our Versamark ink. We'll stamp it a couple times to make sure. And then this time, instead of using white embossing powder, I thought we would go in with silver embossing powder to give it a little bit of shine, and it also goes with kind of that gray theme. We'll just cover that second layer, and then I'll go ahead and melt it with my heat gun. And I think it's the prettiest. I love the layering look. Some of the snowflakes in the stamp set have 3 layers, which is really neat. And I like that they're all different sizes. So that's my little snowflake. We're going to set this aside. Next, I'm going to take my Prismacolor pencils. I just need the white one. And I thought we would add a little bit of shading on the inside of the larger snowflake here. Originally, I was just going to go on the bottom section, and then I ended up filling in that entire teardrop shape. And then once I have all of those teardrop shapes filled in, there's little leaf shapes on the end of the snowflake. I'm going to color those in as well. I think it just makes it stand out against that gray. And I think it looks great. Now we're going to stamp our sentiment. So in the stamp set, there's a sentiment that says, "Thank you, Snow Much." I think that's going to work perfectly. I chose a gray ink to stamp my sentiment. I thought it was nice and soft and went with the gray theme. After we have that done, we're going to go ahead and add some sparkles. These are sequins from Pretty Pink Posh, and they're sparkling clear sequins. These have a heavy cup to them, and so I thought it would give my card a little bit more dimension, since there's not very much dimension on it. But I added tons of them around the corners of my snowflakes. And then I thought that looked really pretty, but you know what? We're going to bring in some Nuvo glitter drops in White Blizzard, and then we're going to basically go over the area that we penciled in. These glitter drops have a blue glitter effect to them, so it's really picking up the teal on the card front, and it's bringing it down, and I really like the way. I hope the camera picked it up, but just love the way this turned out. Very elegant card. But that finishes off card number 2. Okay, for my third card, I think my alcohol ink acetate is dry, and I think it looks really neat. The back side does get cloudy, but the reverse side is shiny. So I thought this would be neat to create a shaker. Well, not really a shaker type window. I die cut out another snowflake using the mini snowflake mandala die. I'm going to go ahead and use this frame that I just used 2 stitched rectangle dies to cut out. A very thin, about a 1/4 inch frame, but I'm going to adhere my acetate to this. Now I wanted to leave a little bit of an open area on the bottom, so I'm kind of just testing my placement here. And I think it looks really neat. A very different effect. Any excess overhanging I'm going to trim off with my scissors. And again, any kind of alcohol color that you got in your kit would work perfectly for this card. Okay, we're going to flip this over. I'm going to add foam adhesive behind my frame. And at this point, if you wanted to use your mica flakes inside, you could very well do that. But I want to keep it pretty simple. I use my paper trimmer and trim down a piece of white cardstock that will fit behind my frame. I did this because I wanted to stamp my sentiment and heat emboss with silver embossing powder. And I wanted to make sure of my placement. So cutting out an extra strip of white cardstock helped me do that. You could do this directly on your card base, but this was just easier for me to line up. Same effect if you didn't use that backing. But this is where you could have added your mica flakes on the inside. But I wanted to keep it pretty simple. Instead, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to add mica flakes to the outside of my snowflakes. I think it would look very, very pretty. Kind of goes with a very different theme. We're going to grab some white scratch paper. Kind of went blank there. And then I'm going to use my distress collage medium to the front of my snowflake, and then we're going to add some mica flakes to this. Now the mica flakes are on the larger side, and so it's not going to look like glitter. It's going to look more like there's little frozen pieces on your snowflake. And I just think it looked really neat, especially with that alcohol ink background. I'm going to go ahead and add that on my card base here. Kind of adjust some of those mica flakes. We'll pour the rest in the jar. And then that basically completes card number 3, guys. A pretty easy one, but it shows you if you don't have any Yupo paper, you can use acetate. I think it will work really well, but pretty clean and simple card. A little bit different, but that's card number 3. So here's all 3 cards that I made today with the Simon Says stamp card kit for January 2020 called Snowflake Builder. Super fun kit. I hope this gives you some different ideas on how to use it. But thanks so much for stopping by. Have a fantastic weekend, guys. We will see you again real soon. Bye-bye.